Hello everyone. I thought that today I would make a repotting video for all of you. And the orchid that we're going to repot today is this Phalaenopsis, which is one of the plants, the orchids that I got from my mother after it was finished blooming for her. And it's been in this flimsy pot for a while now. It's just one of those little plastic sleeves. And the medium is starting to break down quite badly. You can see here at the top of the medium that things are turning a little bit white. It's growing a bit of mold on it, as you can see right here. And the roots, although they still look pretty decent, I'm worried they might start to decline. I found one root around, yes, here. That was starting to look a little bit more worrying. And originally I wanted to wait until the roots had growing tips so that I could seamlessly transition it into self-watering LECA like the rest of my Phalaenopsis orchids. But it's been taking quite a long time, and although it's growing a new leaf, there are no new root tips whatsoever. And I just really want to get out of this pot now. So I'm not going to wait anymore. I'm just going to take it out of its pot and repot into self-watering LECA and keep a close eye on it. And if it turns out to be having any sort of problems in there, I'll see what I can do in terms of keeping it more moist or more dry. And if things really go south, there's always sphagnum moss. It's a very healthy and strong looking orchid, so I'm not too worried about this one. And it has a lot of good roots as far as I can see into the pot, so I'm pretty sure this one will do just fine after the repotting. Now, I don't have a tripod or some sort of camera stand, so the only way I can film is by holding my camera phone in my hand. And doing a repotting with one hand is really quite difficult, if not impossible. So I will occasionally have to put down the camera, do something with two hands, so I won't be able to show you everything, unfortunately, and sometimes it might be a bit clumsy. But I'll do my best and see how much I can show you. Alright, so the very first step is to take this plant and to soak it at the sink. I watered it quite recently, I think 2 days ago, so it's not that it needs watering, it's simply that soaking it at the sink, letting the roots and the medium soak up a lot of water, allows it all to become more flexible, and there's less likely to be breakage when you remove it from the pot and try to remove the medium. And it will also just leave the pot more easily, usually. All in all, it will just make the repotting go a little bit more smoother. So I'll just go soak this at the sink, and I'll be back. Alright, so I let my plant soak for about 15-20 minutes, and it's dripping a little bit. And then it's fallen into this pot I kept here for this purpose. But it seems about ready now to try and get out of the pot. So what I'll do is I'll put it here on the tray. And I'll see if I can remove it from the pot. No, I think this will be impossible to do with one hand. So I'm just gonna... Ooh, how can I best do this? I'm gonna figure something out and be right back. Okay. I am now literally holding the phone between my chin and the collarbone. So I won't talk too much or the camera will wiggle. Okay, I really hope this is in shot. Oh, it's in there really strong. Oh, there we go, it's out. I hope I caught that on camera. Alright, looks like I did catch it on camera. Yay for chins. Yeah, so I got it out of the pot. It was in there quite tight, but we got it out. And as you can see, plenty of good, healthy green roots in there. It looks beautiful. A few that look like they're dying. But that's fine, we'll remove those. So the next step is to try and pry open the root ball and get as much of the old media out as I possibly can. I'll put this away, I don't need it anymore. And I'm just gonna find an opening. I find that the first part of the repotting is always the most difficult, because you have to kind of start prying things open, and it's all in there very tight. And of course you want to do this without breaking roots or causing as little disturbance as possible. And that can be really difficult, especially when the bark pieces are quite big. And I only have one hand to do this, because I'm filming. And I'm pretty sure I can't do all of this with the phone tucked under my chin. So yeah, basically you just go ahead and you try... Oh, there's the sphagnum plug. Lots of orchids have this when you buy it. On the outside it looks like good old bark, and on the inside you have a big compacted plug of moss. You see that? That kills a lot of orchid roots because it's so incredibly compacted, and although it looks on the outside like your pot is dried and needs more water, that core can hold so much more water. that it quietly suffocates your roots. I'm now a little bit further into the repotting, and I thought I'd show you something interesting. So you see how the outside is all just a mass of roots, like it's grown all over the outside of the pots. But when you look at the inside, especially at around the sphagnum plug, sorry, let's get these roots out of the way, you can see there's almost no roots in there. Now this is a tendency that orchid roots tend to have in general. They tend to stay away from the inside of the pot and search for the outside of the pot so they can circle around and kind of wedge themselves in there very tightly. But I can't help but wonder if maybe there's no roots in the center here because the sphagnum was just packed up so tightly and the roots didn't survive properly. I'll keep going, and in the end we'll see how many dead roots we have in the center or whether they're actually fine, and my suspicion is unfounded. But yeah, I just thought I'd show you how neat it is that the orchid roots really tend to try and grow on the outside of the pot, and there's very little actually growing in the middle of the medium. Alright, I've removed most of the bark and sphagnum moss from the plant. And now you can see there are so many good roots. Most of them are on the outside, but even on the inside there's still quite a few good viable roots. They look yellow and sickly, but the only reason they're yellow is that they're not on the outside of the pot and don't receive sunlight, so they don't photosynthesize and don't have as much chlorophyll. But for the rest, it looks pretty decent, it looks pretty good. I'll now go to the sink and rinse off the last bits of sphagnum moss and bark from the root system, and then I'll go in with a sterilized pair of scissors, maybe some tweezers, and get the last little bits out and remove the dead roots. Because I do see some, like this one here. This is clearly a very dead root end. So I'll be right back. Alright, I've rinsed the root system, most of the bark and sphagnum moss is now gone. So next step in the repotting process is to actually examine the health of the roots and get rid of anything that looks like it's dead or will die very soon. The reason for this is that the dead roots, well, they obviously don't really contribute to hydrating the plant and keeping it healthy. And in fact, what it tends to do is decompose. Dead things decompose. And as it decomposes, it tends to acidify the medium and make the medium decompose faster as well. And you don't want that. You want a new medium to stay as fresh as you can for as long as you can, so you don't need to repot too often and shock the root system. Now, in my case, I'm repotting this orchid into self-watering LECA, which is an inorganic medium and therefore does not decompose. So the problem of it acidifying the medium and decomposing it doesn't count in this case. But what does count in the case of self-watering LECA systems is that you just want as few organic components in there as possible, because whatever is in there can decompose. If you hear construction sounds, sorry, they're building like 2 more floors on top of the apartment building in which I live right now, and they're very active today. So I hope it's not too prominent in the audio. Right, so we're going to look at the roots and see which ones are healthy and which ones are not. Now, in the case of a Phalaenopsis, they're being really loud right now. Maybe I'll film this later. I'll be back in a few minutes when they've calmed down. Okay, they seem to have calmed down a little bit with the hammering and the throwing or whatever they were throwing. So let's try this again. Okay, so with the Phalaenopsis, it's relatively easy to see which roots are alive and which roots are dead. So you see all these lovely fleshy green roots over here. They are firm. You can see that if I press down on it, they don't give. Like, I'm pressing relatively hard now, but they just don't, there's no give in there. It's very firm. And all of these are like that. And for those, the ones that are firm and nice and green, you can be extremely sure that these are alive and well and are hydrating your plant. So you keep these. You do not cut these off. You don't break them. You don't damage them. If you do break them on accident, it's not the end of the world. But in general, you want to keep those as intact as you possibly can. Now you have roots like this as well. Roots like this have a break in it. So here you can see this looks good. It's not squishy at all. It's firm. It's green. Then here you have a very questionable part of the root. Just take you in closer. Yeah, it's a break, clearly. This part, however, is pretty good again. It's firm, it's green, it's all good. And then this part is very, very dead. You can tell from the way it has no substance. You can see when I press down on it, there's nothing there. The color is ugly, rotting color. So this can be removed. And you just take off this end. This end is dead. Now the question here is what you will do with a root that has a break like this. Now the answer that I go with is I keep it on. Because what you see here, the green, is not actually the root. It's called the velamen, which is like this spongy tissue which surrounds the roots. It sucks up water like a sponge and provides it for the actual root, which is inside the velamen. And the dead roots tend to slide off very easily to expose it. So I'll just do it right now. There you go. You see that thread there? That thread is the actual root. Yeah? And in this break here, the actual root remains undamaged, and the velamen on both sides are still functional. So for that reason, I'm going to keep this on. I'm just going to remove the dead end over here. I'm just going to cut from here, basically. And then I'll cut into the dead tissue, not the live tissue, so that the live tissue doesn't get damaged any further. So I'll just go ahead and I'll bring my sterilized scissors and I'll do this to all the roots I come across. And they're back to hammering. Anyway, I hope it won't disturb the video too much. So I've got my scissors right here. I've got them sterilized with... I've sterilized them with a flame, so be careful when you do that. And now I'm going to try to, with one hand, get this cut right. I'm gonna cut right here into the dead tissue. Oh god, I need new scissors. These are blunt. There you go. And now the dead part has been removed. And the living part is still there. And will continue to function to hydrate the plant. So now I'll just go through the entire root ball, and I see a lot more, like this here is dead, this is dead, this is perfectly alive, all of this is great looking, this here is definitely dead. You can see the string that leaves behind. I can just pull it off like this. So I'll just go through the whole root ball, clean it up, and get rid of the old roots like this. Alright, so now I've cut out all of the bad roots. You can see I left the yellow ones on because they're firm and strong and they're still rehydrating the plants and there's no reason to remove them. And for the rest, all of the roots are green and fleshy and healthy looking. So the next step now is to simply repot this orchid. So I've got two pots here. One of them is a little bit taller but thinner and the other one is a little bit lower but wider. So first I was thinking I'll put in the small, taller one. But as you can see, it's actually quite a tight fit with all the roots and it won't have that much room left to grow. So what I'm going to do instead is put in this pot. This means that the orchid will be sitting on top of the medium a little more than usual. But I think that will be okay. Phalaenopsis orchids traditionally like quite a bit of air around the roots. And this way at least it will have plenty of room to grow. So I'm going to choose this pot because I don't have another one. It's this size or this size. And I'm going to pot it up and we'll see how it looks. There's the LECA. So I've got these two microfiber cloth strips that I've cut from a general use microfiber cleaning rag. A clean one. And now I'm going to take these and I'm going to thread them through the bottom of this pot. Alright, and that's the first thread. Now I'm going to use 2 wicks just to increase the absorptive ability and the ability to wick the water up into the pot. Because I have tried with 1 wick in the past and it just wasn't quite enough. The LECA got too dry. And there we go. Both strips threaded through the pot, ready to act as wicks. Now, this is when we place the plant into the pot. Usually... Okay, drilling. Hold on. Okay, hopefully they're done drilling now. No, they're not. They're not done drilling. Are you done now? No, you're not done now. I love living in a construction zone. Okay, I think they're actually done. So, usually I would put a layer of LECA at the bottom and then put the plant on top of that. But because this plant has such a high root ball and is already sticking out the pot without a layer of LECA being put underneath it, I'm going to skip that part. I'm just going to pour LECA all around it. Again, this is going to be really difficult to film. If the plant would stand right up on its own. Yes, there we go. Okay. So, Got the bag of LECA right here. I'm just going to take some LECA and I'm going to pour it around the root ball. I'm just going to continue doing that and also make sure I get LECA inside the root ball. That's important. Otherwise you'll have water all around the plant but not actually inside the root ball, which means that it can't actually access the moisture efficiently. So you have to make sure that you get the LECA in it as well as around it. And then pay no heed to the balls that fall to the floor. You'll find them later when you step on them. They're quite hard to miss that way. Okay, put in more LECA balls. And you just keep doing this, trying to prevent any air gaps until the pot is full. Alright, and here is my orchid, all potted up. You can see that I left it sitting well on top of the LECA. This is partially because the pot was not tall enough, but it's also because I prefer having the plant sitting on top of the LECA properly. If you bury the stem too deep into the actual LECA, into the medium, the moisture could cause rot, and rot is something you definitely want to avoid. So it is always safer to have the plant sitting on top of the medium. Now there are exceptions to this. Terrestrial plants might not appreciate this. I've heard that, for example, Paphiopedilum roots stop growing on contact with air. So for them, you don't want to do this. For them, you want to bury the stem just a bit into the medium to ensure that any new roots don't stop growing. But when it comes to true epiphytes like the Phalaenopsis, you really don't want to bury them too deep. So here you can see it's really sitting on top of the media with its roots. But don't worry, there are plenty of roots inside the medium. Let's see, I've got one on the side right there. And there's one on the side over there. And I see some, oh, I see so many air pockets. Hold on, I gotta take care of those air pockets. Be right back. Alright, the air pocket has been taken care of. More or less, this is good enough. It doesn't need to be completely full. As I said, these roots like a little bit of air. And they'll be kept moist enough this way. So now the plant is all potted up. It's all ready to be placed in its outer pot with this reservoir of water and live happily ever after. Now for the outer pot, what I've got for now, it's not a perfect fit, but I've got this one. It's quite heavy. Let's see. Oh my, I might need to use two hands. No, there we go. Ta-da! And there we have it, guys. My mom's Phalaenopsis, all repotted into self-watering LECA. So I hope that you enjoyed watching me repot this and that you've actually learned something from it. And thank you very much for watching and for joining me this afternoon. I hope the construction sounds didn't make it too difficult to follow the video. I know I also tend to speak quite quickly. I'm really trying to consciously work against that, but it's very difficult for me. But well, you know, practice makes perfect. Anyway, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.